For those of you who don't know, she's got a very big following on social, right? How did you do that so quickly? It's crazy.
Well, it wasn't quick. Nothing ever
I
is,
bet
right?
that's true, yeah.
But I had a mentor tell me when I was first starting out, I had maybe 2 single family homes, and they said, you have to do something to build credibility for yourself. And so they said, start a newsletter, start a blog, start something. So I did that, and it was called Little Investments on the Prairie, because at the time
That's awesome.
I was buying like these $25,000 in houses in the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan, Canada. So I called my blog Little Investments on the Prairie, started that, and I realized that I really liked the photos, the videos, and the transformation of spaces. And I was physically working on these properties.
I saw that. That's the first one I saw. You're like, who is this? Like you're knocking down walls with sledgehammers. You got a tool belt on.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah, and that's how I kind of started with my social media, is just showing the process, showing the ups and downs. And then eventually, it took a long time, though, for it to be anything. It took a year to get to 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I couldn't figure it out. But it's all that. It's consistency.
Let's talk about the going from, call it single families to the big projects, because you're doing those now. And I think a lot of people wonder, like, how do I do this? It's the number one question I get.
Biggest difference was when I started to believe that it was possible for me. Because for a very long time, I didn't think it was. I thought I'd just have a few single family homes and I'd be good. I'd have my big goal was make $10,000 a month passive income.
Okay,
That was
so
like
that was your first goal.
Ultimate goal was if I could do that, and then I would just relax and I wouldn't have to work again, and that would be over. I got invited to a mastermind event with Brandon Turner.
Yep.
And he invited 20 people, and I was one of them. I felt extreme imposter syndrome, but then after getting in that room, I saw kind of my future, because all these people were like me, and they had hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate or whatever, like these massive portfolios, and they were still going. And I thought, okay, this is.
Plus, they don't have all the answers.
They don't have all the answers.
That's the thing, right? Like, I remember first getting into groups like that, or EO or YPO, you always like that little voices, like, am I worthy? Am I good enough? Right?
Yeah.
But you got to take that step. And I think, so what you did is you inserted yourself into a new group.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And people that were doing these big deals. And I thought, I could do it too. And that's when I wanted, and I think just after that, I took over my first multifamily building. It was a 15-unit property.
Right.
And it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going. There's always these things we tell ourselves. I was saying, I didn't want to be a boss. I didn't want a team. I didn't want any of that. I'm like, I'm a lone wolf. I'm just going to do my own stuff.
That's a good point.
And that's what I just always told myself. I never thought I was going to be a leader. I just didn't think I had it in me. But it's just not true. There are so many things I told myself forever that just weren't true.
So where do you think all that stuff came from? Because I actually had the same stuff. Like, we grow up, and unfortunately, like in school, there's no collaboration. It's called cheating, right? Like, well, in real life, like in, you sit around and brainstorm.
Yeah.
How can we do this? How can we do that? It's really not taught, right? You're taught to basically be the smartest, and that's it, and not really, because also some people are just afraid to be wrong.
Absolutely. Right? And afraid of not really I don't know how to hire someone. I don't know how to teach someone. All these things that you don't, but it's always the same. You just figure it out as you go along. But I think it was my upbringing as well, because I grew up in a household where it was you do everything yourself.
Yep.
And you save every single penny. So I grew up that way, and that was so ingrained, honestly, up until a few years ago. And I still go through that now.
I think that, my friend said it best. He's like, vulnerability is the currency for relationships.
Yeah.
And I really like that statement, because I think when you can get to the point where you're stripping it all back and you're just telling the truth and throwing it on the table, saying, this is the situation I'm at, this is what I'm concerned about, this is what I'm afraid of, people step up and help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even being vulnerable online on social media, in showing the process and showing the reality to a certain extent, what I mean? But that builds trust with investors, and that builds this trust over time when you can be real and people can relate to you better. So then you're building this trust with everybody. It's your partners, your investors, your brokers, like all of them start to know you and for who you really are.
Okay, so you went from a bunch of single families to now the bigger deals. And so what are you working on now?
Up until that mastermind. So After that, I got my 14-unit apartment building. And then I met my business partner, AJ Osborne, who we're both mutual friends with. He is the top self-storage industry leader. Like, he is awesome. So they have close to 300 million square foot in self-storage. And I was starting to buy my own self-storage facilities in Canada. But then as I was doing that, I'm like, okay, I really need a team. I really need all. And then as I was talking to AJ more, because he was starting to do a lot of stuff on social media, pushing out his podcast, doing all that stuff. So I was helping him with his social media. He's helping me with my storage deal. And then we realized there's a lot of compatibility to team up and for me to come on and partner with him on these self-storage deals. So I started bringing investor capital and my social media skills and all of that to those deals. And now I'm a general partner in 600,000 square feet of self-storage. So, and just working with operators who have that track record and 20 years of experience, right? Like, if I could do that on my own, I could buy self-storage facilities, and I still have my own portfolio, and it's doing great. And I'm buying another multifamily in Canada, 15 units, no money down. It's gonna double in value. It's awesome, and I have that. But I love partnering with the operators and bringing investors in and having that as well, because it's just a really cool when you start to understand what you can bring to the table, your skill sets, and how you could bring value to other investors.
A lot of people, well, we talked a little bit about this, they don't like to partner. They want to do it themselves. We call it in Rich Dad Poor Dad ESBI, they're S's, they're, self, right? Self-employed, or, we see this a lot. How did you crack through that? When did you decide to get into partnerships? Because that's a big change.
That was difficult for me too, because I was that lone wolf person. I never thought I'd partner. I never thought I would do any of that. But then once I started to think about, there's a lot I didn't like actually in the single family world, and I was getting burnt out, to be honest. I was just like, I'm working 17-hour days, 7 days a week. I'm just exhausted, and I didn't want to do that anymore. But it took a lot of years of doing that. And then meeting the right people, because once you meet the people who have the same long-term vision as you and who you have compatible skill sets with, and you could work well together, I'm actually way more of a collaborator than I expected. Because this is our real life too. It's you want to be partnered with people who you can be friends with and you have the same similar values, and it's not just all straight business. It's actually like, okay, the bigger picture of things. But I love the business, and I think there's so many amazing people in it to partner with. And I think it was just meeting those people and understanding that, because I was just in my own bubble before. I was removed from everybody else. But going to masterminds and different things like that made a huge difference.